Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a 2025 election update video. I'm going to be going through all the major important 2025 elections. There's not many, but I would say there's 4 or 5 to keep an eye on. It is an off year, but so we've got two important governorship elections, and then we have a few mayoral elections that are getting some serious coverage. I would say the most anticipated election of the 2025 cycle would be the New Jersey governor's race. Jack Ciattarelli, Mikey Sherrill. You look at the latest polling, you've got a Fox News poll with Sherrill up by 5. Trafalgar, insider advantage. Republican pollsters putting out a poll with Sherrill only up by 1. Fairleigh Dickinson, Sherrill +7. The overall spread being Sherrill +4. Ciattarelli is coming off the 2021 loss that was after Biden had won in 2020. Ciattarelli only lost by around 2 points to an incumbent. Now he's running against someone that's a little bit worse, at least people perceive as worse, in Mikey Sherrill. However, you are going to potentially have a more galvanized Democratic base with Trump winning in 2024. People expecting it's an off year, the Democrats to turn out a little bit better than the Republicans. This right now, I would say, you look at the polling, you look at the betting. The betting is around 82-18. That doesn't mean Ciattarelli can't win. But, and you do have the Trafalgar poll. They'll immediately dismiss it. They'll say, oh, it's a Republican pollster. They have been accurate in the past. A little bit different in terms of an off-year election versus presidential, but still, I do think this is going to be a very close race, considering Ciattarelli, even though back in 2021, it was a situation where he was coming as kind of the challenger with the Democrats winning in 2020. Now not that he's the incumbent, but the Republicans won in 2024 with Trump. So it might be a little bit harder for him, but I do think Sherrill is a worse candidate than the incumbent Murphy was back in 2021. And Ciattarelli did only lose by around 2.5 points, along with the fact that New Jersey seemingly has more energy for conservatives in general with the shocking election results. The Republicans only losing by around 6 points, Trump only losing by around 6 points. And it is a state that we've seen elect Republican governors in the past. The governorships tend to act a little bit more independent of the overall presidency and who wins in terms of that. So I would say Ciattarelli right now, I'd put it about 60-40 Sherrill. People say, well, maybe 70-30. I'd say it's about 60-40. I think it's a close race. I really do. And you're looking at maybe a poll here, a poll there, if it's a 2 or a 3 point. I mean, it just depends. You're hearing a lot of good stuff on the ground. You're hearing some early voting stuff. I never really take the early voting stuff into account too much, but we'll have to see. I know Ciattarelli is outperforming, I believe, his 2021 early vote numbers. Some of that, though, is Republicans feel more trusting in the early vote process. You have to take that into account. So it's really hard. It's kind of an apples to oranges comparison when it comes to Republican early votes, because they are going to be more open to early voting in 2025 than they were in 2021. So that data needs to be taken into account. You need to contextualize it. Taking a look at the next most important race, I would say, would be the Virginia governor's race. That is Winsome Earl Sears taking on Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat right now, sitting up around 6. Of course, Glenn Youngkin winning shockingly in 2021, had very negative polling numbers. Virginia, at least the past few cycles, tends to go the opposite. So, for example, Biden, the Democrat, winning in 2020, Republican Youngkin wins in 2021. People think Trump winning in 2024, the Democrat is going to win in 2025. Virginia, see, that this is the thing. You look at New Jersey, you look at Virginia, these are liberal states. They are. Now, you can say, well, they're closer. It's not like it's plus 15, plus 20 lib. Maybe right now, New Jersey plus 6, plus 7. Virginia, you could argue anywhere from like plus 5 to plus 10. But these are liberal states. So if the Democrats win, they're going to immediately say, well, look at all these elections, all the special elections, the governorship elections. Trump is so unlikable. The Republicans are not winning a single thing. Well, these are Democratic states. And I'm not saying Ciattarelli can't win. I'm just saying take that into account. When it comes to this, it does seem likely. You look at the betting, it's like 97%. Now, I'm not saying it's gospel. I'm not saying it's a for sure thing, but Spanberger Looks very good. Quantus Insights, a more Republican pollster, Spanberger +5. Coefficient, Spanberger +5. Trafalgar, Insider Advantage going with Spanberger +3. So they've got Spanberger +3, and then they have Sherrill +1. So they also think that New Jersey has a higher chance of Republicans pulling off the upset there than in Virginia. Of course, it is still at this point around 2 weeks away. You could get more polling, but at this point, you look at, I mean, this is consistent polling with it being outside of the margin, or at least close to outside of the margin. The overall spread +6.1. Although this poll, this Christopher Newport University poll taken back in September, +10, that's going to kind of affect the composite there. You also do have the New York mayoral race. This is one that I've seen a lot in social media. Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, right now is in third. Eric Adams has already dropped out. A lot of his voters presumably go to Cuomo. People are pressuring Sliwa to drop out and endorse Cuomo, or just drop out in general. He is the Republican. He did win the Republican primary for the candidacy of the mayorship there in New York. However, the issue is the vote splitting. You can see Mamdani sitting at around 45%. A recent poll has him at 43. Another poll has him at 46. You think, well, if Cuomo can take that vote, that 14%, now you've got a race to where it's very close. And also Adams, that 6% potentially is mostly going to go to Cuomo. So you add on maybe 4 or 5% from that. You add on 13 or 14%. Now you're talking about Cuomo in almost a 50-50 dead heat race with Mamdani. I'm not sure if Sliwa will drop out. It doesn't seem like he wants to, although there's rumors now that he will. I mean, this is just an unfortunate situation. Cuomo, at this point, he lost the Democratic primary to Mamdani. He wants to run again. He wants to take the Republican votes. It seems like Mamdani, it's going to be hard for him to eclipse 50%. But even if it was just Cuomo versus Mamdani, I think people would probably still favor Mamdani. Although, I don't know, man. He's at 44, 45. It'd be very close. I do think it'd be very close. And it would also, there'd be a lot of energy if that happened, to where it was just a 1v1 race with Sliwa dropping out if that happens, because Adams is already out. Obviously, Mamdani with Sliwa in the race is going to be around +17, +18. It's going to be a very easy victory. So maybe there's some politicking behind the scenes that's done. When it comes to this in general, obviously, I think it's terrible if Mamdani wins. You could look at it glass half full and say, well, he's going to be so bad, people in New York City will become more Republican, and that would be huge if that happened, because a lot of this, New York State, a lot of it is conservative. Of course, the city where most of the population is very liberal, so it turns the state heavily liberal. But I'm not really sure the type of power the mayor has in terms of enacting some of the stuff that Mamdani does. It seems like it's going to be maybe a watered-down version of socialism, if I had to guess. And you're also dealing with a lot of negative news on, if you do raise the taxes on wealthy people, a lot of them can kind of circumvent that and claim residences in other cities, and a lot of the tax revenue would be lost for New York City. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's not a good look. I mean, New York City is such a major city in the United States. You wouldn't want Mamdani leading it, of course, but this is just how it is. It's a localized election. It's very, very liberal. And you see some of the polls to where you've got like native born people, it's +9 Cuomo, and then you've got the foreign born people that became citizens that got naturalized, it's like +20 Mamdani. It's terrible. And then you do have that's not what I wanted to go to. You do have the Virginia Attorney General, Jason Miyares, taking on Jay Jones. Miyares is the incumbent. Miyares is sitting +2.5 right now. Quantus with a +7. Coefficient, Miyares +4. Trafalgar +5. Liberals, I think, still think they could win this race. It's pretty crazy. Going into this, before those text messages got leaked, where Jay Jones was talking about killing, or a Republican colleague dying and saying he wanted someone to die. It's running for attorney general and have that leaked. It's terrible. And it was about a 50-50 race, I would say, before those got leaked. And I think the Democrats were very bullish on it, or thought they could win it. And I'm guessing they think Spanberger is up at this point to where they can still run Jones and he might lose, but it's not going to sink the entire Democratic ticket. So it looks like Mayoral is in a good spot at this point, especially the last like 4 or 5 polls. You know, they're going to try and argue some of these are like Republican pollsters. The Republican pollsters tend to be more accurate, but either way, I mean, I believe you take a look at the betting into it's like Mayoral at 70%, 65, 70%. In terms of that. Actually, you know what? We'll take a look at the betting really quickly. This is the Minneapolis mayoral election that's happening. We'll see if Minneapolis falls to the Somalian army there with Omar Fati, who was endorsed by Ilhan Omar and just all the Somalis there that are now in Minneapolis. It's just insane what's going on, you know, in some of these cities. Dearborn, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota. But let's take a look at some of these actual... Say it's not going to go to that. New Jersey. All right, well, you know what? Can we go to, like, elections or something here? Mondani is at 92. Now, it'll be interesting with Mondani if Sliwa drops out. Because right now you could say, well, it's looking like he's not going to drop out because he keeps saying in speeches he's going to run and in statements... But if he drops out, I think Mondani would probably go down to about 70%. Cuomo would jump up to about 30%. I still think Mondani would be the favorite. But there is that. And then you do also have... I guess we'll just have to search it. New Jersey. God, this thing is... Cheryl at 84%. Yeah, Cheryl was down at 80. She's back up to 84. I just think the polling for Citarelli hasn't been nearly as bullish as some people thought. And so maybe that's why he's back down. It's about 80-20 race. I still think there's a shot. Taking a look at Virginia, you got Miores at 66% chance, so about a 2/3% chance. Spanberger at a 94% chance. So what I would say in this is I think you got more than a puncher's chance in New Jersey. I don't think this is a great representation of where the odds are actually in New Jersey. Maybe that's a little bit of bias coming in, but I think it's closer than an 80-20. I think it's like a 60-40 type race there, maybe 65-35. The Attorney General, I don't see Jones winning that at all, especially with those messages. I mean, it's only a plus 2.5 spread, and there's not a ton of polling, and the polling is unreliable. And this is an AG polls. It's like you're not going to get extremely reliable polling, but and I think New Jersey is the most important one to watch. New York City, we'll see if Sliwa drops out, if Cuomo, how much percent he gets from him. That's going to be interesting. But, you know, this is one of those things to where it's like New Jersey's a liberal state. Virginia's a liberal state. The AG, you would figure, I mean, could you imagine if Jones wins that after, you know, everything that happened? I mean, it would not be a good night there for Republicans. But, like, these are like niche races, and this is a year after Trump won. Liberals are more galvanized. They're going to come out. I'm not saying Citarelli doesn't have a chance in New Jersey. I think he does. But, you know, the polling, and these are some of these Republican pollsters, you know, we'd like to see a Citarelli +1, +2. It doesn't matter entirely. He can still win with it being within this margin. But, you know, we saw Youngkin win in 21. So you really don't know. I mean, these are just polls, and we'll have to see in the betting, and you kind of take it all into account, and you factor it in. And we've got 2 more weeks worth of polls, but these are kind of the most important races. But I mean, again, you know, you're going to have these liberals, if they end up winning, they're going to start screaming about how unlikable Trump is. This is a liberal state here. Now, sure, they can elect a Republican governor, but still, it's a liberal state. And the New York City thing's different, but Virginia is another liberal state. So we'll have to see. But either way, guys, those are the most important elections. Not a ton of elections for the 2025 off-year elections, but either way, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Thank you for watching.